speaking from the Competent Communicator Manual, project number 10, Inspire Your Audience. The objectives of this project are to inspire the audience by appealing to noble motives and challenging the audience to achieve a higher level of beliefs or achievement. Appeal to the audience's needs and emotions using stories, anecdotes, and quotes to add drama. Avoid using notes, and the time requirements are 8 to 10 minutes.
As mentioned, distinguished Toastmaster David Paldenavich has actually probably done this speech or this project 2 or 3 times before. So we never give up practicing and trying to improve. It doesn't matter how many years you've been in Toastmasters, it's always good to keep practicing. So without saying any further, I'd like you to welcome distinguished Toastmaster David Paldenavich.
Use your eyes! Good, that's good. That has got to be one of, at first glance, one of the most cruelest things a teacher can say to a visually impaired child. It's kind of like a child that's a little gimpy or on crutches, and come on, Gimpy, run! Gimpy, run! Like I said, at first glance, that may seem to be cruel. But when you dig a little bit deeper, and it's about 35 years later, deeper, into what she had to say, there was a lot of value into that. It wasn't done to make fun of me. It was done to encourage me to use what little I had. I was thinking about people that have a lot and people that have a little. And sometimes, when people have a little, it's easy to put a death grip on something. We think, oh, I just have a little talent. I can speak a little bit, but I certainly can't speak as good as Mr. Sharp. I've got a little bit of money, but I can't give as much money as Marshall Isaacs. Man, that guy is wealthy. We look at ourselves relative to other people, and we have this little thing. It's easy to put a death grip on it and not use that little thing. I reflected on a story that Jesus told about a guy who had this big company, and he had 3 servants. And he gave one servant 10 bags of gold. He gave the second servant 5 bags of gold. And he gave the third servant just 1 bag of gold. The boss went away. He came back. The guy that had 10 bags of gold made 10 more bags of gold. Everything's hunky-dory. The guy that had 5 bags made 5 bags of gold. Everything was hunky-dory. But the guy that had 1 bag buried it and didn't do anything with it. And that got the boss really angry. And when the boss asked him why, the man told him that he was frightened. That's kind of a weird excuse. I was frightened not to use my talent. And I thought about that, but a lot of people are like that. They're frightened. They've got this little burgeoning talent. Maybe it's being a better speaker. Maybe it's a musician. Maybe it's money to be able to give. And they have just this little bit, and they think, yeah, not that much. it turns out it's a lot more than what you really think. And I had a very interesting experience the other day. I'll give you an example of this. I went to the eye doctor, and I did my usual visual tests, which drive me crazy because I can't read any of the letters. And they go, oh, read these letters. I can't see it. Make it bigger. Can you read it now? No. Then all of a sudden, this big letter comes up. Can you read it? Yes. It's an A. Are you happy now? I was doing the visual test, and I don't know if I tried harder on the visual test because I didn't perceive anything different with my vision, but all of a sudden my doctor at the end of the appointment asked me, are you getting any government benefits? I'm like, no. And he said, I just wanted to ask you because you're not quite legally blind. And I'm like, damn it, my comedy shtick, my motivational speaking, everything, and now you're telling me that I'm not quite legally blind, I'm just visually impaired? Don't you know my future livelihood is depending on that? What that showed me is I had a little bit more vision, maybe, than I thought that I did. When I tried just a little bit harder on the eye charts, and I tried just a little bit harder on the field test, maybe I discovered a little bit more vision than I thought I had, which is really an incredible thing. But my joke, getting back to what I was talking about earlier, some people are like that. Some people have an inability that holds them back. And if they lose that inability, then they have no excuses for themselves. And I can see better now. So, geez, I can't use my eyes as much of an excuse. It gets you to thinking. It gets you to thinking about using that little bit that you have. Whether it's eyesight or whether it is other things. I will never, ever forget when I was in Haiti, the most humbling thing happened to me. One of the individuals in our party had this strange idea that the people there should pray for my eyes, that they would get better. I mean, it's a tremendously generous thought, and it also made me feel tremendously awkward because I was there to serve those people, not the other way around. So anyway, she brought that request to the pastor, and that night, those people prayed for my eyes. And these people were some of the poorest people I have ever seen in my life. They had no money to give. They barely had roofs over their heads. They barely had clothing. But yet they had one thing to give, and that thing was their prayers. And they gave their prayers passionately and without any abandon. And when we think about things like that, I wonder, how do we define poor? Do we define poor as people that don't have a lot of things? Do we define poor as people that are dumb? How is that? Or maybe there's a new definition of poor. Maybe a new definition of poor is that people that don't have anything to give. And I think the moral of my story today is when we look deep down inside of us, whether it's in my case where I have poor eyesight, I still have some eyesight to use, and I still should be able to use that to the best of my ability. or whether it is people that have poor or don't have a lot of resources, and they're what we consider poor. They still have something to give. They were able to give their prayers. And so when we look about utilizing our talents and developing our talents, we should look for that little thing inside of us and use it and develop it and make it grow. Toastmasters.